Hello everyone, welcome back to a new analysis video. Today we're going to be looking at stats versus Serral from the Nationwars finals, which was Finland versus Korea. This was the final map. Before this, Serral's won a game and Stats has won a game, so it's technically 1-1. But because they're all best of ones, we're not really going to write that down. And I found this game interesting because of the way that Stats played. He'd been introducing something old again, so basically reintroducing something again with a slightly modern twist, which I want to basically have a look at. It's a very aggressive playstyle with an opener that basically uses a bunch of adepts to put on pressure on the Zerg and force out links rather than forcing out roaches early on. Then you go again to force out more units, trying to keep Zerg on a low economy throughout the game. Rather than going for big damage, almost all your damage is going to be indirect, which in the past year and a half, it honestly has been a little bit different, as most of the damage has been direct damage, mostly through oracles, sometimes through the help of a DT drop. But this is more of a indirect damage, where you just force out units and you force the Zerg to stay on a low worker count through that, basically. So we just open up with a very standard gate expand, and Serral opens up the same way every single game, just with a hatch first, as he's very confident in his ability to win through a standard macro game. I don't think I've ever really seen Serral play pool first, or maybe once or twice he's done a 12 pool. I believe he did it against Neep somewhere this year in one of the WCSs, but in general 90 to 95% of his games he's going to open up with that hatch first, as he is probably the best standard player in the world. No need to go into a non-standard game in that case. Second gas on the way, as well as the second pylon. And we have a couple more links being built. Some might be used for scouting. Always interesting to see the scouting path of the Zerg, as we see the first two links already straight across the map. First adept is being chrono boosted, and just look at the movement of these first two links of Serral. Instead of going for the probe, actually he's gonna go for the probe with 3 of the links. We'll send a drone there, of course, to get that hatchery down. And then we have this link just confidently moving throughout the middle. We'll be hiding in those bushes for a little bit. Stats knows there's a link on the map, so he's scouting. But Serral decided for the other location. And now we'll be able to get in before the second adept is out. So he'll get a very quick scout on what his opponent is doing. And here we go. Does end up seeing the Stargate, most likely. Yeah. There we go, we'll even be able to see what first unit will be built. So this is absolutely the perfect scenario. He'll see a Phoenix starting, goes back to confirm, yes, that's a Phoenix. Second adept is out as well. So this most likely kind of double confirms that there is a Phoenix on the way. Most of the time when people open adept, they will follow it up with Phoenix rather than with Oracle. Most of the time if people open adept Stalker, they'll follow it up with a straight Oracle. If they open Stargate. Of course, adept Stalker could be basically going into anything. Could also be DT drop or a robo start or some kind of glaive adept all-in, or even a charge lot all-in if you're feeling fancy. Now the first Phoenix is going to be trying to find some overlords. And the way that Stats will start this game is by getting a Phoenix to lift queens, hunt overlords, deny vision, and then get 1 or 2 oracles to try and pick off some drones, get a third more safely. Without oracles it's very difficult to get a quick third base, but with oracles definitely a lot easier. And he'll be going into 2 gate. And you might be thinking, well, how can you actually be aggressive off of 2 gates? It's relatively simple to get aggressive off 2 gates if you continuously warp in. And that's exactly what Stats is going to be doing. He's just going to continuously be warping in adepts until he gets to 6. Then he'll be moving out with those 6 adepts. Of course, after he starts his second oracle, he tries to get his robotics facility as quickly as possible, just for safety's sake. And after a double adept warp in, clears a couple of links, clears out the final overlord on his side of the map, he will most likely be moving into that third base, another adept warp in, and then the pressure I was talking about will kind of start to ramp up. Like, once again, it's not heavy pressure, it's just pressure meant to really deny a high drone count. And not through direct damage. Sometimes you might be able to do a lot of damage if your opponent underestimates it, but in general you should not be able to get any damage in. So a couple more adepts being shaded across the map. 6 adepts in total, 5 will make their way across the map. And we see as a response Serral's building a bunch of links. We'll be going up to about 19 links in total on the map against 5 adepts, and worker count staying pretty low because of that. This will finish this shade, and just trying to get some trades in. Usually with these adepts, you want to keep your oracles close by, so this kind of stuff can't happen. But Stats has different plans, as he actually wants to do some damage with these oracles. Does manage to get 2 drones, some damage on one of the queens. Loses 2 adepts for it, but the indirect damage has already been done. A lot of links have been forced, and now there's kind of part 2 of this attack, which will be with an immortal. You can go with a couple of sentries. Whenever Zerg sees a lot of sentries on the Protoss side of the map, they will most likely start preparing for some kind of push, because why else would you be building sentries? So just showing 4 sentries should kind of force Serral to build at least 3-4 roaches. In case that Stats moves across the map, he can be morphing those into Ravagers. We see very little respect out of Serral. He starts his Baning Nest, 6 more drones. 4th base is on the way as well and continues his creep spread. We'll be going up straight to 72 workers. So in this case, I wouldn't have minded if Stats just fake moves out with 1 immortal, all these sentries, leaves his oracles at home to kind of defend this base. And then try to make a fake push onto this 4th base, forcing out more roaches and links rather than more workers. But instead we see Stats just kind of gearing up for a later push. Gas is going down right now as well, while Serral is still kind of heavily droning up. And usually this would be probably 83 workers in this case for Serral if he wouldn't have had that adept move out earlier already. Right now we're stopping at 74, which is still 4 base saturation the moment your main starts mining out, which is relatively soon. We see about 140 minerals on the faraway patches that have less minerals. But you can't really take 8 gas off of a 73 worker count, basically. You need more. You need 80, 81, 82, so you can really saturate those gases. Otherwise your mineral income just won't be good enough. Yeah, see Serral opting for Roachling Bane. Most likely won't be getting too many roaches. Already has 9, is getting 5 more. Perhaps a little bit afraid of a push. Usually you only build roaches when you're afraid of a push pre-storm. And the moment a pre-storm push doesn't seem scary anymore, you just want to be getting higher Baneling counts, more links, start doing run-bys with Banelings, start doing drops with Banelings, try to maybe the Knight of 4 to do a big push on the 4th, that kind of stuff. Now, we do see an Oracle still hiding in this little area, not really getting any vision whatsoever. Stats' vision in general is pretty poor, and he's gonna try to solve that. The easiest way is by moving on the map. If you're being aggressive, your opponent will need to show where they are with their army, or they will take some real damage. In this case, the damage won't be any resource damage, but he could be losing creep or something like that. So just being on the map usually forces your opponent to give you some kind of information. Now, a little bit of a link run by. We'll be heading into the 3rd, and at the same time, we have a Baneling drop. And if we take a look at stats, he isn't actually responding. And this game was looking so good just before this Baneling drop. I mean, he was even in workers, a 4th base was on the way, Hive was relatively late, Storm was on the way, and +1 was done. I think Stats was gearing up for a fantastic 4 base push with perhaps +2 and Storm. And I think he would have been able to hit really, really hard. But after losing 16 workers, his main focus is going to be on rebuilding those workers. A lot of the chrono boost will be going into those probes, not into upgrades. And his money will just be lower, and thus his supply will be lower. Some good force field are coming out of Stats, catching a big part of this army. Another drop heads into the natural, 1 Stalker being warped in, as well as 3 Zealots. We'll be cleaning up those links relatively easily. At the same time, a Link Bane attack at this base, getting cleaned up by 2 Archons and a Prison. It's absolutely fantastic micro. If an Archon has orange HP, it means they have like 4 or 3 HP left. Or maybe 4 or 5, and then once it gets to 3 it will be red, but it's absolutely insane. It's 1 more hit by a Zergling. Of course these shields will recharge, but this Archon will remain orange forever. Very sad. So even though Stats lost a lot of workers, we've seen his trades have been very good. He had a nice little trade here, and a nice little trade here, and as a result the supply is extremely close. Now this is kind of scary for Serral, because if the toss maxes out on Archon, High Templar, Immortal, if you're only on Link Bane Ravager, you're actually going to have kind of a hard time dealing with that. So what you want to be getting is you want to be getting Brute Lords. That Brute Lords completely hard counter that army. The problem is that I believe that Stats will have a timing pre-Brute Lord. So what Serral needs to do is he needs to force Stats to stay at home. And the way Serral likes to do this is by splitting his army up in 2 and basically starting a base trade in 2 locations the moment his opponent moves out. So we see the first army being set up. This will be heading towards the natural base the moment Stats moves out. And then we have this army, which either will be defending the creep a little bit, or will be heading towards the 4th base, depending where he finds it appropriate. And funnily enough, these two armies are actually forcing a lot of Stats' army to be at this 4th base. You see, this is 4 Archons, 2 Templars, a bunch of batteries, a cannon as well. All of this is being forced to this 4th base, because Stats can't at all times know exactly where Serral's armies are moving. And just because they're split, it means he also needs to split his army. But Serral is way quicker at regrouping than Stats will ever be. So Serral will most likely poke in here, see 4 Archons and be like, hey, you know what, I don't think this is worth my time, let's go away. But Stats can't move away from here, because he doesn't know if Serral is moving towards the middle or if he's staying here. And Serral smells this, he sees an opportunity, Stats does see these links move out, does not move these Archons. And just like that, he has a massive army caught in the middle, and what was looking to be a very promising push for him now seems to basically be not the end of the game, but this is not the kind of trade you want to be taking. I mean, he loses basically all of his important units, like a lot of Immortals went down, a lot of Sentries went down, a lot of Templar went down. We still have 6 Templar, but these are newly warped in, they don't even have Storm yet. There was a lot of gas lost right there, and even though the resources lost is still kind of similar, Serral won time, which is really all he needed. Right now his Greater Spire is gone. He even smells a little bit of an opportunity as he's building a lot of Banelings right now. He's smelling blood, and Serral is very good at knowing when to attack. And he believes if he pushes hard enough, perhaps he can kill him. After those storms, yeah, this is what I would thought would happen, is Corruptor start. He's like, alright, I tried, I don't think I can kill him. I'll just go back, regroup, get my Broodlords out. And the moment Broodlords are out, this whole army that Stats has been building up over the past 12 minutes will be practically useless. It can only be used for run-bys at this point. And on this map it's very difficult to run by, as you have these ramps or these weird bridges in the middle that are kind of choked up towards this area, which is easy to defend. And then the other opportunity to attack is either this or this. But it's there's not a lot of rotations to make as the Protoss here. It's difficult to tear a Zerg player apart. And Serral knows that. He's getting his Corruptors. And once the Broodlords are out, the game will kind of stabilize in a way where a straight up push will never be able to kill him again. There is Blink, so in low numbers Broodlords will not be able to kill Stats, but Stats really doesn't have any air army going on for himself right now. There's a Mothership on the way, he has a good probe count, but if 10 Broodlords would show up now, I really have absolutely no idea how he would be dealing with it. Even 7 Broodlords might be a little bit scary. And yeah, how many did finish? 3 finished, 5 more on the way, 6 more on the way, so it will be going up to 9 Broodlords. And if Serral realizes that there is no Tempest or no carriers, I think he could be going for a little bit of a push. Now Zergs generally, oh, this is a good run by. I'll hold that thought for a second. These links with Adrenal Glands and these 3-1 upgrades are extremely good, even against Zealots. Usually Zealots destroy links, especially when Zealots have even upgrades, but once Adrenal Glands kicks in, I mean, you see these links absolutely going mental. This is like the 3rd or 4th warp in that Stats had to do just to deal with, what was it, 15 links or so. Definitely not cost efficient for Stats. And here we go with the Broodlord push. As we see, there's no air here for Stats, and what can he really do? The thing he needs to do is hope that his storms land, and that he can warp in a bunch of Stalkers and then hopefully jump underneath these Broodlords somehow. But a lot of Queens are coming as well. These are 5 Queens, a bunch of them have transfuses, will be able to heal up those Broodlords. 17 workers have gone down already, either by Broodlords or maybe a Baneling run by that I missed somewhere. Serral is so fast that even as an observer it's difficult to catch everything. And this push looks very difficult to stop here for Stats. I mean, there's so many Broodlords, so many transfuses are going down. The only thing lacking right now is that the Baneling count isn't that high. Serral is warping in or morphing in 13 more Banelings. But I'm not sure how much longer he wants to push forward, but because the moment these Broodlords die, he's very vulnerable once again to a big ground attack. Good blinking forward here by Stats. We'll be able to snipe out 2 Broodlords, bunch of storms going down on top of all of the links and Banelings. Don't forget the supplies look very much in favor of Serral here, but Stats has way less workers, and also a lot of that supply is in production. So the actual standing army for Stats here isn't all that bad, and Serral realizes that. It's like, wait a second, I only have 5 Broodlords left, I have 0 Banelings. Let me just get some Infestors. Let me just morph in 10, 20 more Banelings perhaps. So add some safety to whatever I have. I'm ahead in worker count. I have a good army. These Broodlords, perhaps a little bit low in Broodlord count, but he still should be able to fight. There's no storms on the map here, and Stats is trying to get something done, but I don't think this army will be able to deal with all of these Zerglings. Even Archons, if you have 8-9 Archons, again this many Zerglings with Adrenal Glands, in combination with these Broodlords, it's so difficult to make anything work. Now, the saving grace here for stats is that he still has a 5th base. He has very good gas income, and as long as TOS has gas income, most of the time they can do something. As you can see, they can... High Templar basically costs nothing, right? They're 50 minerals and 150 gas. So as long as you get a lot of gas, you can just warp in 4 or 5 Archons at a time, basically. You can get a couple of Storms, and it's difficult to kill a Protoss that has Storm available, especially if you don't have a high Broodlord count. So that's kind of what stats is banking on. I really wouldn't mind in this situation to see a couple of Tempests being started, because starting a carrier transition at this point is very difficult to be aggressive while you're transitioning to carriers. So you would just give Serral even more time to get further ahead, push a creep here. There will be like 20 spores here by the time you have 4 or 5 carriers. There's Infestors out already. I mean, at this point, I think definitely the wise play would be to get Tempest and basically go for a Hail Mary push with 5-6 Tempest, one-shotting Broodlords, and then hoping Storm clears everything on the ground. It's an interesting run by Serral, because sure, he has a lot of income, but he isn't that rich, and he isn't even maxed at the moment. So whenever he loses something, it doesn't actually give a big benefit to him. It's not like he couldn't already build those extra units before, right? He could have already built more units, like he's still not maxed. So if he isn't doing a lot of damage, I'm not a massive fan of these attacks, because you're just kind of bleeding out units and giving stats an opportunity to get back into the game. As Stats has different plans than me, like I said, I wouldn't mind seeing Tempest. Stats, on the other hand, will be going for some kind of Immortal Archon Stalker bust, I feel like. As he's warping in, well, he's getting more Immortals, he has a lot of Storms, he has a bunch of Archons, getting more as we speak, and he has a couple of Stalkers. But the problem with Stalkers is, if they get fungled, they can't actually blink anymore. So Infestor Broodlord is extremely powerful against Blink Stalkers. It's also it's powerful against everything, but especially against Blink Stalkers, because the one thing the Blink Stalkers are here for, which is sniping the Broodlords, won't be possible anymore. And I think Stats is about to find that out, as, I mean, he doesn't really have enough anti-air here. 6, 7, 8 more Stalkers being warped in. Upgrades are good for Stats, but are amazing for Serral. I mean, just look at all these upgrades here for Serral. Big Time Warp being cast on top of those Broodlords, of course, does work now after the patch. Will slow down their attack, will slow down their movement speed as well. But there's so many Broodlings, and these Broodlings are very heavily upgraded. 3-1 upgrades on those Broodlings. Of course, +2 flyer attacks already as well on those Broodlords, so even the impact damage is pretty big already. And ooh, that's a very big revelation. The one thing that the Mothership is good for, which is providing detection, now completely useless. Maybe one more Time Warp will be thrown down, as a couple of fungals are being cast on top of these Stalkers. And once there's fungal on the Stalkers, I mean the Broodlings, look how many Broodlings there are. How many Broodlings actually is there? Doesn't show up on the unit stats sadly, but it's like absolutely 20-30 Broodlings every single time, as there's 15 Broodlords. There's 30 Broodlings every single time. Absolutely crazy, and this is just bullying by Serral at this point. Stats has absolutely no opportunity to do anything right. A couple of Storms going down on top of his own Archon, some Broodlings dying, but these Broodlords just aren't going down. And as more Fungals, as more Biles, as more Banelings storm into this army, it basically becomes impossible for Stats to do anything. Neural Parasite to tell Stats to get out of the game as he grabs a couple of his Archons, but I mean, there's really nothing left here for Stats. And look at the bank of Serral behind this. He's 3k, 3k. Stats was pretty much all in with this army, and basically while he was all inning, he got killed at his own base, just because the army he had wasn't really appropriate for this phase of the gaming war. GG gets called, and Serral wins this game. So a very nice early game and early part of the mid game by Stats, but I feel like the moment these first Baneling drops start hitting, it just becomes so hard for Stats to get any kind of momentum in the game, and it shows as he loses this game, and Serral wins Nationwars for Finland. Congratulations to you, Serral. And congratulations for everyone who finished watching this video. Feel free to subscribe, like, and comment. And I'll see you boys in the new year. Bye bye.